The final movement, which we're going to look at today, and please do again sing along to this one, is the movement which follows segue, which means that it's without a break from the previous one, qui tollis. I'll give you a chance to find that in a second, and you can sing along. What it's nice to and interesting to compare and see the process that composers in those days went through. These days, we think that a composer would set out to write a piece, and it would be completely new, a totally new work. Whereas in Handel and Bach's time, there was much more widespread reuse of existing material. If you'd written a piece, as you know, Bach had to write cantatas for, it was part of his job to write cantatas for the normal Sunday worship. So you might think that if you'd been particularly pleased with a particular work he'd written for a given Sunday, that he might think, oh, it's a bit of a shame that it only happened once. Might never be heard again. So there's not the kind of widespread transmission of music that there is today. And again, bearing in mind that the B minor Mass is very much a kind of bringing together of the best that Bach can do, it's not so strange that he chooses to reset a lot of music that he's written before. And I think I've said earlier in earlier weeks that a lot of scholars believe that a lot of the B minor Mass is in fact written from pre-existing works that have since been lost. And some of them they know are written based on other works which we no longer have. So I thought it might be interesting to have a look at, to first of all sing along to the version that we're used to, but then I'm going to play you part of the cantata, which was written originally, which was written first, and from which this was based. You'll notice that he cuts the introduction, and uses just the first section. However, it's interesting that the theme and the words are very much related in kind of an emotional state, because the cantata was setting text from the Book of Lamentations, talking very much about grief, and so it's a very appropriate feeling to use it for the text, qui tollis peccata mundi, who takes away the sins of the world. Again, this is very expressive. There's this lilting viola line at the beginning. The pizzicato idea from the previous movement has transformed into something totally different and very much more somber. When this movement starts, you get this the double basses play one note every bar, but the cellos play a staccato note once a beat. And against that, you get this kind of lulling thirds in the viola part. And there's kind of, you just feel that it's very expressive, rather plaintive. And then, so the voices this is all happening at the same time, of course, and you've got sustained, now unmuted strings. And then he reintroduces the flutes again in bar 102, or if you've got different bar numbers, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bar 7 of the qui tollis movement. You get this lovely idea. So the idea of the duetting from the previous movement is then kind of somehow transformed into this duet between the flutes, which is kind of like an echo of the duet of the movement before. Again, there's rather a lot of movements either taking in turns to that idea, or as in bar 110, playing in thirds. So the way, again, he has a multi-layered texture, it's very clever. He has the long sustained notes in the choir, offset by the rhythmic interest in the orchestra. And it comes to a beautiful and very quiet, reflective close. And really it's harmonically setting up the qui tollis movement which follow, which will be the first one that we look at next week, because it finishes, it doesn't really end in its own key, having started in B minor. It doesn't finish in that key, it ends in the dominant of that key. And you'll remember that we talked about that previous weeks. The dominant is the key on the fifth, the second most important key. So we finish in. And that is harmonically setting up the next movement with this lovely oboe d'amore. Again, with a nice prominent fourth interval. So we'll talk about that again next week. So I hope you've enjoyed. Do remember you can keep going back. Just, you don't have to be necessarily going through this in linear order. If you've got favourite movements, ones you particularly enjoy singing, just go back and sing them again. Sing them more times rather than having to have me choose which movements we do. You can go back and spend more time on the ones you really like. So have a good week. I hope you've enjoyed this week, and I shall see you again, same time, same place, from my office. Take care, everybody.